Dance and arts have always been part of my life. Since the age of 5, I was singing solo at church and asking the most astonishing questions to my father. I guess I never wanted to do what people ask me to without knowing a reason. And this stubbornness, curiosity, and perseverance lead me to do a career in biology and then in singing, being a singer, a teacher of singing, and of course, a researcher in voice science. I have dedicated my life to the understanding of the female voice and how singers are affected by sex steroid hormones. Then I broaden up the scope of my research into voice care and voice education. The majority of my co-workers are very strong and respectful women and respectful men, but now the field of voice science is flourishing with astonishing women. I guess what makes this day special to me is that I have an incredible family, very supportive colleagues. Sometimes I feel I'm on the edge and I need 12 arms and 12 hands in order to do the work I have to in the time frame I have. But nevertheless, I cannot imagine myself doing something else apart from science in voice. My name is Philippe Alain. I am one of the 11% of women that were awarded with Talento Investigador de la Comunidad de Madrid in Spain. I am the director of the Voice, Music and Language Research Laboratory at the Faculty of Education at UNED.
¿Cómo es ser mujer en esta área de la ciencia? Bueno, pues para empezar es un área que aunque tiene muchos puntos en común con la física acústica, con la psicoacústica, con la neurociencia, se considera de letras. ¿Por qué? Pues porque se imparte en grados donde comparte docencia con literatura. Y esto tiene relación con una de las principales dificultades que nos encontramos, y es que mucha de la formación que tenemos que adquirir la tenemos que adquirir de forma autónoma, en el mejor de los casos, y en el peor de forma autodidacta. Y aquí sí encuentro las dificultades relacionadas con el hecho de ser mujer. ¿Cómo una mujer, una lingüista, en un curso de especialización en física o en neurociencia? Bueno, no siempre es fácil. Yo tengo que decir que la mayoría de mis experiencias han sido muy positivas. Quiero agradecer pues la oportunidad que me dio la Universidad de Aarhus de hacer un curso de neuroimagen donde aprendí muchísimo, o una escuela de primavera de Brain Computer Interface en la empresa GTEC. Yo creo que aunque estamos lejos de conseguir la presencia que por peso demográfico y por presencia en el mundo académico nos corresponde, estamos en el buen camino, y por eso quiero animarlas a todas a perseverar y a seguir adelante.
Women in science and girls in science, I think, is a wonderful expression of humanity. We are all in this together. And I was very fortunate that when I was at school, I studied the arts and I studied the sciences. So I wish everybody, all my colleagues and friends around the world who work in singing and voice science, because we have a wonderful job. And I thank Philippa for the opportunity for us to share our thoughts and ideas, and hope to see you at a conference sometime soon. ICVT is in Vienna at the beginning of August, and PVOX at the end of August in Tallinn in Estonia. So, hope to see you there.
Jag heter Glaucia Salomão, och på International Day of Women and Girls in Science vill jag berätta att jobba som forskare har givit mig en unik identitet som inte är relaterad till kön, ras, nationalitet, språk eller brytning. Det är sant att vi kvinnor fortfarande är underrepresenterade som forskare inom akademin. Jag kommer mycket väl ihåg när jag under mina doktorandstudier flyttade från Brasilien till Sverige för att forska just inom röst och röstakustik. Jag var en av de mycket få kvinnor i forskningsgruppen och även på hela avdelningen. Saken är att forska betyder i grunden just det, att kunna tänka kreativt och fritt, att våga kunna föreställa en verkligheten som är annorlunda till vad vi ser, och att jobba hårt för att kunna bidra för att påverka samhället och ändra normer om det behövs. Vi vetenskapskvinnor har möjlighet att bidra till att skapa en mer jämlik verklighet. För vetenskap är global. Den tar inte hänsyn till köns- eller rasskillnader, för det är större än så. Det är för alla.
Did you know that the arts and sciences can be closer together in motivations and usefulness than most people realize? They both require an open curiosity and willingness to experiment. They both require a disciplined joy in notating outcomes, as well as the ability to dream and be practical. They both need resilience, thrive in collaboration, and are the reasons humanity has made it this far. We need more people who identify as women in science to draw these connections and to seek creative ways to fund our own research. Frankly, as an independent educator, my research wouldn't have happened if I didn't have a husband who willingly supported me as I researched and wrote. We need women and girls to challenge the status quo when it doesn't serve all humans. We are only now beginning to understand that women's health issues, our biology, and artistic expressions are tied to our unique bodies and experiences.
Para mim, o desafio de ser cientista é me ver como cientista. Pelo menos no meu meio, dificilmente as mulheres se veem como cientistas. Mas quando eu analiso a minha trajetória, eu vejo que desde pequena a curiosidade para saber o que é fato, realidade, fantasia ou inferência sempre esteve presente. E essa é uma característica muito da mulher. É uma característica do ser humano, mas a mulher não necessariamente ela é reconhecida como uma característica que leva em busca de uma profissão onde pesquisar, reunir evidências e compartilhar faz parte do seu dia a dia. Assim, o meu desejo é que cada menina do mundo se veja como uma cientista em potencial. O que eu gosto de compreender é como as pessoas usam a voz para melhorar os relacionamentos, como a comunicação pode ser utilizada para um melhor entendimento entre os homens, as mulheres e em virtude das dificuldades do nosso mundo globalizado, como uma comunicação pode ajudar na paz.
Every day we are here working hard and trying to make ourselves a space in the world of science. I'm very lucky because I'm in the Laboratory of Voice, Music and Language at UNED, Madrid, thanks to Filipa Lau. And I work, I enjoy and learn about science of voice. Actually, we are doing a project that makes science for women.
É com muita alegria que eu recebo o convite para participar desse vídeo, pois as mulheres na ciência já percorreram um longo caminho, mas ainda há muito a construir. Como mulher, quanto aos desafios de ser mulher na ciência, existem muitos outros, quase sempre invisibilizados aos olhos menos sensíveis da burocracia, menos sensíveis ao critério de ascensão na carreira, mas que são determinantes para a nossa inserção e crescimento na carreira científica. Em termos práticos, ainda que eu, tenha um companheiro bastante participativo na vida familiar, ele, que também é professor e cientista, mudou muito pouco a sua rotina e desempenho acadêmico com a chegada dos nossos 2 filhos. Já eu, por decisão pessoal, optei por um intervalo de quase 10 anos entre o meu mestrado e o meu doutorado, para poder acompanhar o crescimento deles. E eu me pergunto, em que lugar a maternidade está colocada na vida acadêmica? No meu currículo, é possível apenas ver um gap de tempo improdutivo nesse período. No Brasil, nós temos um modelo de currículo padronizado, chamado currículo Lattes, que é utilizado por todas as esferas na pós-graduação. E já existe um movimento de mulheres que vem inserindo o período da licença maternidade nesse espaço, ainda que o tempo e a dedicação para os filhos ultrapasse muito o tempo da licença maternidade de 6 meses. Mas isso já representa um movimento simbólico, né, importante, assim, né, de alguma forma de valorização desse espaço, né, e dessa condição. Para mim, um outro grande desafio cotidiano, né, como professora e orientadora de pesquisa, é não reproduzir práticas de dominação e poder sobre outras mulheres.
My passion is the amazing human voice, specifically female singing voice. You may wonder, isn't the female larynx or voice box just a smaller version of the male prototype? Actually, it's not. Female larynxes are not physiologically identical to male larynxes. In addition, women experience hormonal cycles and seasons that male bodies don't have due to the undulating nature of the female reproductive system. These reproductive hormones can sometimes impact the voice, especially in singing. We might also observe that, collectively, female voices have special characteristics within our own societies. Girls and women have important stories to tell and things to say that are uniquely female in point of view and priorities. But back to science. Voice science is the special corner of research dedicated to understanding how the voice works in its many ways, mechanically, acoustically, neurologically, and so on. So who is better equipped to study the special qualities of female voice, both quantitatively and qualitatively, than women and girls?
Fundei o departamento da unidade de voz há 17 anos no Hospital Iris Muniz, em Lisboa. Faz parte da Universidade Nova de Lisboa. Neste momento estou a fazer o projeto de despiste precoce do Covid através da voz, projeto chamado CoVoice.
Desde muy joven tenía claro que quería dedicarme a la investigación, pero como seguramente habrá pasado con muchas mujeres, tuve que enfrentarme a esos patrones culturales fuertemente arraigados donde se cree de forma errónea que la mujer, para poder sobresalir y destacar en el campo académico, tiene que saber llevar de forma paralela familia, trabajo e investigación, y donde no se nos tiene permitido fracasar. Así es que por mucho tiempo he dejado, postergado y relegado ese sueño de dedicarme a la investigación. Hoy en día me siento privilegiada por poder tener la oportunidad ahora de acceder a mi investigación doctoral, donde quizás las mujeres no somos mayoría, pero sí tenemos que aprender a liberarnos de esos viejos patrones, de esos viejos prejuicios y reconocer y fomentarles desde muy pequeñas a las mujeres, desde niñas, que nosotras también somos importantes en el campo de la ciencia.
Currently, I am doing my research about the effect of singing on communication skills and speech of children with autism, especially nonverbal and minimally verbal autism.
I want to talk to you about full and equal access and participation for women and girls in science. I experienced discrimination in high school math class when a group of boys who were my academic equals were promoted to an advanced math class while I was left behind. That same year, my career counselor at school recommended I consider being a flight attendant as a top career choice. Later, in college, I experienced feeling like an outsider when I attended an engineering school which had fewer than 10% female students in undergraduate studies. Even now, that school has only 30% women in the student body. Probably all women in science have experienced discrimination or feeling like an outsider. When we experience this, it means that we have to do more than just show up and be our best selves. We also have to work up the courage to face any hurdles or resistance that might come our way in a potentially unwelcoming environment. I want to tell you that it is worth it. It was worth it to the women who went before us and began to carve a path. It has been worth it to the women of my generation who are making the path wider and smoother for those who follow, and it will be worth it for all future generations as we see the benefits of having a balanced representation in science. We expect full and equal access and participation for all women and girls in science everywhere.
Being a woman in the voice field and the voice research field has been very fruitful. Of course, we have had sometimes some discrimination because academic problems, and also we have had supporters in all these fields. I think if you are very clear as a woman that you are in a society working hard for the development of the human communication, just like voice field and voice research, you will succeed at last. I thank you very much and stay healthy. Bye.
I wish you all a wonderful International Women's and Girls' Day in Science.
En glad internationell dag för alla kvinnor och flickor inom vetenskapen. Happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. Feliz Dia Internacional das Mulheres e das Jovens na Ciência.
Desejo a todas as mulheres investigadoras do mundo um bom Dia Internacional da Mulher Investigadora no Mundo.
Happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science.
I wish you a lovely day, today and every day.
Feliz Dia Internacional da Mulher na Ciência e parabéns a todas as mulheres maravilhosas que nos inspiram e têm coragem de compartilhar os seus desafios. Sucesso!